The kind woodcutter and the cry in the forest. In the quiet village of Tuma, where the wind carried stories and the trees whispered secrets, lived a humble woodcutter named Makoma. He had strong arms and calloused hands, but a heart as soft as morning rain. His hut stood at the edge of the village, small and worn, built with care and love. The roof leaked when it rained. The floor creaked when he walked. But it was home. Makoma's life was not easy. Each day, he walked into the woods with an old axe that once belonged to his grandfather. The blade had grown dull from years of work, and so had Makoma's body. His shoulders ached, and his knees complained. But still, every day before the sun rose, he would pick up the axe, sling a woven basket over his back, and begin the long walk into the woods. At home, his wife Lela lay on a mat, her skin pale and her breath thin. She had fallen ill months ago. Some said it was the fever that came with the dry winds. Others whispered it was the forest curse. Makoma didn't believe in curses. He only believed in her. And she was fading, like smoke in the wind. He had sold nearly everything, his extra clothes, his mother's cooking pot, even the wooden stool he had carved with pride. But no medicine helped. No healer could cure her. All he could do now was walk, pray, and hope. One morning, as the sun yawned over the hills, Makoma stood beside Lela, brushing her hair gently with trembling fingers. Her eyes fluttered open. "You're going again," she whispered. "Yes, my love," he said, smiling though his heart felt heavy. "I will bring wood. Maybe someone will trade for food today. Or herbs." She tried to smile. "Don't go too far." "I won't," he lied. Because today, he planned to go further than ever before. The villagers of Tuma always warned about the whispering forest, the deep part of the jungle where the trees grew older than memory and strange things were said to live. No one entered that path unless they had death in their heart or desperation in their bones. Makoma had both. His legs carried him deeper, past the singing birds and familiar paths. The forest changed. The air grew thick and still. No insects buzzed. No leaves moved. Even the wind seemed afraid to breathe. He was deep now, too deep. Still, he walked on, gripping his axe tightly. The trees were huge here, with roots like twisted snakes and bark as dark as night. Shadows clung to the ground like they didn't want to let go. Makoma wiped sweat from his forehead and kept moving, hoping to find strong wood that would sell better in the market. Suddenly, a sound froze him in his tracks. It wasn't a bird. It wasn't a beast. It was a cry, a low, painful moan that rose and fell like the voice of someone too tired to scream. Makoma's heart pounded. He turned his head. Again, the cry. It sounded sad. He crept forward, one step at a time, his boots sinking into the damp soil. He pushed past thick bushes, vines tugging at his legs. And then he saw it. In the center of a small clearing, where a giant baobab tree had fallen, lay something unbelievable. A serpent, longer than 3 hats, with scales as dark as midnight and edges glowing like molten silver, was trapped beneath the massive tree trunk. Its body twitched weakly. Its golden eyes blinked, full of pain. Makoma dropped to one knee, hiding behind a bush. His breath caught. "A spirit," he whispered. Because that's what it had to be. No normal snake was that large. No normal creature looked both terrifying and beautiful at once. His grandmother used to speak of such beasts, guardians of the forest, cursed gods, protectors and punishers. And everyone knew, do not meddle with magical creatures. But it was suffering. The serpent groaned again, its tail thudding weakly against the earth. The fallen tree held it down like a cage. Makoma's heart argued with his head. He could walk away. He could leave. He could return home and pretend this never happened. But then Lela's face flashed in his mind, her fading smile, her weak breath. Makoma stepped into the clearing. The serpent's eyes turned to him. They didn't burn. They didn't threaten. They begged. He spoke, his voice shaky. If you eat me, so be it. But no creature, spirit or not, deserves to die trapped. The serpent blinked slowly, then stilled. Makoma gripped his axe and walked to the fallen tree. The wood was thick, ancient. He raised his blade and swung. The dull edge thudded against the bark. Splinters flew. Sweat poured down his face. Again. And again. He chopped until his hands blistered and his arms screamed. The tree didn't want to let go. But neither did he. An hour passed. Then two. Then the tree gave a loud crack and broke. The serpent hissed sharply, twisting its body. With a great shudder, it pulled free. Makoma staggered back, panting. The beast rose slowly, lifting its massive head into the air. Its golden eyes locked on him. The moment stretched, thick with silence. Then the serpent spoke. Its voice was deep, ancient, like thunder crawling through the earth. You have freed me, mortal. When all others would flee, you stayed. Why? Makoma's knees buckled. He dropped to the ground. I don't know, he whispered. It just felt right. The serpent studied him for a long time. Then it bent its neck, reaching toward its side. With a soft hiss, it pulled out one shimmering silver scale, larger than a man's palm. This is my gift, the serpent said. But listen well, Makoma of Tuma. What is freely given, can be freely taken. Makoma took the scale with shaking hands. It pulsed with warmth, glowing faintly like a living thing. He looked up, but the serpent was already gone, melting into the trees like a shadow in water. Makoma stumbled home through the dark woods, the silver scale still clutched in his hand. The forest seemed to whisper around him now, softer than before, almost like it was watching. He crossed the boundary of Tuma as the sky turned orange with evening. No one saw him. No one knew what had happened. When he entered the hut, Lela lay still on her mat, her breath shallow. Makoma knelt beside her and placed the scale beside her hand. If this is magic, he whispered, let it heal her. He didn't expect much. Just hope. Just a miracle. Then, exhausted, he leaned back against the wall and closed his eyes. The next morning, a ray of light struck Makoma's face. He woke with a start. And gasped. Lela sat upright, her eyes wide and clear. Her cheeks had color. Her body had strength. She smiled. I'm hungry. Makoma fell to his knees, crying. It worked, he whispered. He looked around, and his jaw dropped. The hut was full of silver coins, bundles of dried food, fresh mats, glowing stones, and clothes finer than any he had ever seen. The scale on the floor still pulsed with life. Makoma didn't speak. He just stared at the miracle, knowing that the world had changed. And somewhere deep in the forest, something ancient still watched. Miracles begin at home. Makoma sat on the floor, his eyes wide and his heart trembling. The morning sun shone through the cracks in the wooden wall, painting golden lines on the floor. Beside him, the silver scale still glowed, humming softly like it was breathing. It didn't shine like a stone, it lived, as though it carried a heartbeat from the forest itself. But that was not what made him tremble. It was Lela. She sat upright on her mat, her hands folded neatly in her lap, her face full of color. Her lips were no longer dry. Her eyes sparkled with life. Makoma, she asked gently, brushing a lock of hair from her face. He rushed to her side, falling to his knees. You're awake. She smiled and touched his cheek. I'm alive. He kissed her hand and cried. He did not care if tears made him look weak. He had carried pain too long to feel shame. Now, he was just grateful. I don't understand, she said softly. I was ready to go. Makoma pointed to the glowing scale beside her. It healed you. A gift from something powerful. He told her the story. The whispering forest. The fallen tree. The trapped serpent. The ancient warning. What is freely given can be freely taken, he repeated, voice low. We must be careful. Lela's eyes softened. Then let us use it wisely. When Makoma stepped outside, the world felt different. Birds chirped sweeter. The wind brushed his face gently. His feet didn't feel so heavy. Then he noticed something stranger. A clay pot sat by their door, overflowing with rice and groundnuts. He turned his head and gasped. Bundles of firewood, enough for weeks, rested neatly against the wall. Inside, their hut had changed overnight. The holes in the roof were gone. The mats were replaced with clean, soft ones. The cracked water jar now gleamed like it was new. In the corner, shining coins and clots of deep indigo and gold appeared as if they had grown from the floor. He reached out and touched a basket filled with yams. It was real. Makoma dropped to his knees again. The serpent's gift had not only saved Lela. It had transformed their lives. But Makoma was not a man who believed in hoarding blessings. He took the extra food and walked through the village. Children with empty bellies stared with wide eyes as he handed out roasted maize and sweet plantains. Their mothers wept in gratitude. He found elder women whose huts had half collapsed from last season's rains. Makoma hired young men to rebuild them, paying in gold coins they had never seen before. He brought a healer from the faraway hills to tend to the sick. He paid the healer well, and gave him extra so he could help other villages too. And each day, he walked alongside the people. Fixing roofs. Carrying water. Cooking stew. He didn't wear the golden cloths. He didn't sit in luxury. He still wore his old shirt and carried his one axe. The villagers began to call him something new. Makoma the Blessed. Mothers named their sons after him. Children ran to greet him. The old praised him in songs. And in every corner of Tuma, joy returned. But not everyone smiled. From his high compound built of carved stone and strong red clay, Chief Ngolo watched in silence. He stood tall and wide, with rings of copper around his thick wrist and a robe stitched with fine animal skins. His face was sharp, his lips always carved into a smirk. His voice was low and smooth like old leather, but inside, his heart was a stone, cold and greedy. He had ruled Tuma for 20 years. He had walked with pride while others bowed. His word had been final. His hands had taken what they wanted. But now people spoke of Makoma. Makoma this. Makoma that. Makoma the healer. Makoma the giver. Makoma the miracle. Even the elders, the ones who once served him tea with trembling hands, now sat and whispered praises of the humble woodcutter. Chief Ngolo slammed his hand against the carved wooden table. His guards flinched. Tell me, he growled to his advisor, a thin man named Tando, who always hovered nearby. How did that poor fool become the richest man in the village overnight? Tando cleared his throat. They say it's the forest, my chief. Some say he met something not of this world. Ngolo's eyes narrowed. Nonsense. No one gains power without taking it. He stood and walked to the edge of the balcony. From up high, he could see the entire village. Children played with new toys. Women wore new clothes. Men smiled like the world had changed. Because of Makoma. The chief's jaw tightened. He hides something. A treasure, maybe. A secret. I want to know what it is. He turned to Tando. Send 2 men. Quiet ones. Let them watch his home. Let them follow him. If he breathes, I want to hear it. If he blinks, I want to know. Tando bowed. As you wish, Chief Ngolo. Meanwhile, Makoma and Lela continued to live humbly. They used only what they needed and gave the rest to the village. But the scale, Makoma kept it hidden in a woven pouch near his heart. He never used it again. Not for himself. Each time he looked at it, he remembered the serpent's voice. What is freely given can be freely taken. He spoke little of the serpent. Only to Lela. And even then, with caution. But Chief Ngolo's spies were patient. They watched from behind bushes. From rooftops. From market stalls. They followed Makoma to the river. To the forest edge. To the healer's hut. Days passed. Then weeks. And while they saw no treasure chest, no bag of gold, they reported one thing with certainty. Chief, he keeps a silver object close to his chest at all times, the first spy said. It shines like no metal we've seen. The second added, he never lets anyone touch it. It glows faintly. Even when there is no Sunday. Chief Ngolo leaned forward in his seat, eyes gleaming. A charm, he whispered. A spell. Magic. That is his secret. He stood tall. If he won't give it, I'll take it. While the chief plotted, the village of Tuma thrived like never before. Children grew healthier. Markets bustled with trade. Roads were repaired. Laughter returned to homes. And at the center of it all was Makoma, carrying wood again, not because he needed to, but because he loved to walk. He walked through the village with a smile and a heart full of peace. Still, at night, he would sometimes wake in a cold sweat. He would touch the pouch on his chest and whisper the words again. What is freely given, can be freely taken. He didn't know when, or how, but in his bones, he felt it. A storm was coming, the greedy chief's plan. The moon sat high above the village of Tuma, casting a silver glow over the rooftops. Crickets chirped in the tall grass, and distant drums from a wedding feast echoed faintly in the wind. But while most of the village slept in peace, one man did not. Chief Ngolo stood alone on the balcony of his great compound, his fingers tapping the railing. His eyes burned with anger. His lips curled in disgust. He had waited long enough. Makoma, the poor woodcutter, had become a legend. Children danced around fires chanting his name. The elders called him wise. Even the traveling traders now asked, where is Makoma the Blessed? Ngolo, ruler of Tuma, son of warriors, the voice of the ancestors, was becoming invisible in his own land. That night, he made a decision. I will take what is mine, he muttered. The streets of Tuma were quiet. Dogs slept cold near cooking huts. The night breeze rustled banana leaves. Ngolo wore a dark cloak and walked with silent feet, his guards left behind. This was a task for his own hands. He moved through the village like a shadow, his heavy steps careful on the dirt paths. Makoma's hut stood near the edge, where the trees began. A soft light glowed from inside, Lela's lamp, perhaps. But no voices. All was still. Ngolo crept to the door and paused. Then, slowly, he pushed it open. Inside, the room smelled of healing herbs and fresh earth. Lela slept soundly on the mat, her breathing deep and steady. Makoma sat slumped near the wall, a half-carved piece of wood resting in his lap. His chest rose and fell in the rhythm of deep sleep. The chief's eyes scanned the room. Then he saw it. A small woven pouch hanging from a hook on the wall, just above Makoma's shoulder. Ngolo moved like a panther. His hand snatched the pouch. He opened it, and gasped. Inside, glowing with a light of its own, was the silver scale. It paused softly in his palm, warm but strangely heavy, as though filled with the weight of another world. Ngolo's heart pounded. "This is it," he whispered. "This is his secret." He stuffed the pouch into his cloak and turned to leave. Behind him, Lela stirred slightly, but did not wake. The chief stepped out into the night, victorious. He didn't stop at his home. He didn't wait until morning. He ran straight into the whispering forest. The trees welcomed no one. As soon as Ngolo crossed the threshold, the forest shifted. The wind disappeared. The leaves stilled. The crickets went quiet. But the chief didn't notice. His mind was filled with visions of gold palaces, endless jewels, and servants bowing before him. He reached the clearing where, according to the spies, Makoma had gone weeks ago. He stood beneath the ancient trees and shouted into the darkness. "I have the scale. I am your new master. I want more." His voice echoed strangely, swallowed quickly by the silence. Nothing answered. The chief gritted his teeth. "I am the ruler of this land. Show yourself." Then the wind blew. But it was no normal wind, it howled with voices. Whispers. Screams. A sound like crying and thunder mixed into one. The trees bent, groaning under a force not of this world. Ngolo stepped back. Then, from between the shadows, something moved. The serpent appeared. It was larger now. Darker. The glow of its silver and black scales pulsed like fire under its skin. Its golden eyes were not kind. They were furious. "You come with a stolen gift," the serpent said, its voice deep enough to shake the ground. "You take without giving. You demand without understanding." Chief Ngolo tried to speak, but his tongue stuck to the roof of his mouth. The serpent's body coiled around the trees, its presence too massive to be real. "You believe you are powerful," it said. "But true power does not steal. True power does not lie." The chief finally found his voice. "I am ruler of Tuma. I deserve your gift." The serpent's golden eyes narrowed. "You deserve only what you give. And you have given nothing." Then, suddenly, the silver scale began to glow brighter and burn. Ngolo screamed. He dropped the scale, but it stuck to his palm like it had grown roots into his flesh. The heat spread through his arm like fire. He fell to his knees, howling. The serpent rose taller. "You were warned." The wind exploded into a roar. The trees twisted. The ground cracked. The serpent lunged, not to bite, but to wrap its great body around Ngolo like a rope around a stick. He struggled. He kicked. He screamed for mercy. But the serpent did not answer. The scale in his hand shattered into dust. And then, everything went silent. The next morning, birds returned to the forest. The wind blew gently through the trees. The sun kissed the village with soft golden light. But Chief Ngolo was gone. No one ever saw him again. Far from the forest, Makoma woke with a jolt. He touched his chest. The pouch was gone. He looked at Lela. She was still sleeping peacefully. But he felt it. In his bones. In his spirit. Something was wrong. He followed the path into the forest, guided not by footprints, but by a strange pull in his heart. When he reached the clearing, he saw it. A pile of ashes, cold and grey. And in the center, a broken, lifeless scale, dull like stone. Makoma knelt beside it. He picked up the remains of the scale. It crumbled between his fingers. He heard no voice. The serpent was gone. Only the wind answered him, whispering the same words over and over. What is freely given, can be freely taken. He stood in silence. Then, with slow steps, Makoma turned and walked back home, his heart heavy, his mind quiet. Back in the village, the sun continued to rise. Children laughed. Water pots clanked. Life moved on. But in the chief's compound, no one came to open the gates. By noon, the elders declared what everyone already suspected. Chief Ngolo was gone, taken by the forest. Makoma's loss and realization. The morning sun rose slowly over the village of Tuma, casting soft golden light across the fields and rooftops. Roosters crowed in the distance. Smoke curled gently from cooking fires. It was a peaceful dawn. But in one small hut at the edge of the village, Makoma sat upright, heart pounding in his chest. Something was wrong. He looked to his right. Lela still slept, her breathing soft and steady, her skin glowing with health. But his eyes quickly scanned the room. The woven pouch, the one he always kept near him, the one that held the serpent's silver scale, was gone. Makoma stood, his hands shaking. He rushed to the wall where he had last hung it. Nothing. His eyes darted around the room. He dropped to the floor, searching under mats and baskets. Still nothing. A cold knot twisted in his stomach. The scale was gone. He took a deep breath and stepped outside. The morning breeze brushed against his face. Birds chirped from mango trees. Children played in the distance. Everything looked normal. But inside, something felt broken. He turned back to Lela. She was safe. That was all that mattered. But a voice, quiet and old, whispered in his mind. Go. Makoma walked past the market, past the water well, past the last row of huts. His feet carried him toward the forest like they had a memory of their own. He stepped over roots, around stones, through tall grass, and into the whispering forest. The trees welcomed him, not with fear this time, but with silence. Not even birds chirped here. The air was heavy, as if it knew what had happened. He followed the path his heart pointed to. It took him deeper and deeper until he reached the ancient place, where the forest grew darker, where shadows hung like curtains. And there, beneath the twisted branches of the whispering tree, he found it. A single, broken scale lay in the soil. It was no longer silver. No longer warm. It was cold, cracked down the middle like shattered glass. Makoma knelt and touched it. The moment his fingers made contact, a voice echoed around him, deep and eternal. What is freely given can be freely taken. The forest grew still. Makoma closed his eyes. He knew now. The serpent had come for what was his. Someone had taken the gift without asking. Someone had paid the price. He didn't need to guess who. His heart already knew. Chief Ngolo. And the price had been everything. Makoma stood and looked up at the whispering tree. Its old branches swayed slightly, though there was no wind. The forest said nothing more. He placed the broken scale back where it lay and turned to leave, his steps slow, his heart heavy. When he returned home, the village was still asleep. But by the time the sun reached the center of the sky, the changes had begun. One by one, the riches disappeared. The baskets of gold turned to dust. The fine cloths crumbled like old leaves. The dried food vanished as if it had never existed. Even the walls of Makoma's hut creaked again, the roof losing its shine. But Makoma did not panic. He sat on the floor and watched quietly. Lela emerged from inside, blinking at the light. What's happening? She asked. Makoma looked at her, strong, beautiful, alive. And he smiled. The gift has returned to where it came from, he said. She looked around, surprised at how quickly it all vanished. But you're not sad. Makoma shook his head. Not anymore. That evening, the villagers noticed the changes. Some whispered. Others wondered aloud. But when they visited Makoma's home and saw Lela healthy and Makoma calm, their hearts were at ease. One mother approached with her young son and said, "You saved him. He was dying of the fever. Now he runs and laughs again." A father said, "You rebuilt my roof. Gave me work. My family can sleep dry at night." An elder placed a hand on Makoma's shoulder. "You gave when you had. And when it left you, you still stood strong." Makoma smiled at them all. "I was never rich," he said, "not by gold. But you all made me the richest man in this village." That night, the people of Tuma gathered in his yard. They sang songs. They danced barefoot in the dust. They brought roasted maize, sweet yam cakes, and calabashes of fresh palm wine, not out of pity, but out of love. They didn't need Makoma's riches. They needed Makoma. Later, as the stars blinked into the sky, Makoma sat with Lela, holding her hand. "I thought the gift was the gold," he said softly. "But it wasn't." Lela smiled. "No. It was me. It was them. It was us." He looked at the flickering fire. "And I would give up every coin again just to have this." A warm breeze brushed through the trees. And somewhere, deep in the whispering forest, a pair of golden eyes opened. The serpent watched quietly, hidden in the shadows. It had given. It had taken. And it was pleased the real treasure lives on. The morning after the riches vanished, Makoma rose from his mat and stepped out into the open air, a soft smile on his face. The village of Tuma was waking up slowly. Roosters crowed. Smoke curled up from cooking fires. Children laughed as they chased one another with sticks. The scent of boiling millet filled the air. Makoma's hut no longer sparkled with gold or shimmered with fine cloths. It looked like every other home again, humble, worn, but strong. Beside him, Lela appeared, her face glowing in the soft morning light. She was healthy. Strong. Her laughter now came easily. Her steps were steady. She had returned to life, not just in body, but in spirit. Makoma took her hand. They no longer had treasure. But they had something far greater. Peace. Respect. Love. In the weeks that followed, Makoma returned to his old rhythm. He chopped wood again, not because he had to, but because he loved the work. He said the forest taught him patience. That the earth spoke when you listened long enough. He helped repair old huts, carry water for elders, and plant cassava with village farmers. He taught the younger boys how to use a blade without anger, and how to treat every tree like a gift. The villagers still called him Makoma the Blessed, but not because of silver or magic. Now, it was because of his heart. When someone's roof leaked, Makoma was the first to arrive. When a child fell ill, he fetched the healer and sat by the family's fire, offering comfort until they could smile again. And when food was scarce, he gave from the little he had, without hesitation. People no longer looked to him for gold. They looked to him for guidance. One quiet afternoon, as Makoma sharpened his axe near the mango tree, a small boy wandered up. His name was Teyo, no more than 7 years old, with wide curious eyes and dust on his cheeks. "Uncle Makoma," he asked, clutching a small stick. "Yes, little one," Makoma said, smiling. "Do you miss it?" "Miss what?" "The treasure. The shiny things. The gold and coins." Makoma chuckled softly, resting his axe on his lap. He looked into Teyo's eyes and said gently, "No gold shines brighter than love freely given." Teyo tilted his head. "What does that mean?" Makoma patted the ground beside him, and the boy sat. "It means treasure isn't what you keep in your hands," Makoma said. "It's what you share from your heart. Kindness. Laughter. Helping someone who has nothing. That's what stays with you forever." Teyo looked thoughtful for a moment, then smiled. Like when you gave my mama food when we were hungry. Exactly, Makoma nodded. That was real treasure. The boy beamed, then ran off, shouting to his friends, Uncle Makoma says love is shinier than gold. Makoma laughed, the kind of laugh that only comes from a heart that has been tested and come through stronger. As the seasons passed, the village of Tuma flourished. Not with coins or jewels, but with unity. People shared more, helped more, loved more. When someone fell, others lifted. When someone succeeded, others celebrated. They didn't need magic to grow rich. They had learned the greatest wealth came from each other. Makoma never spoke again of the serpent. But sometimes, when he walked near the edge of the whispering forest, he would pause. The trees would sway gently, though there was no wind. And he would whisper, "Thank you." Not for the gold. Not for the miracle. But for the lesson. Deep in the whispering forest, beyond the reach of light and sound, the serpent lay coiled beneath the roots of an ancient tree. Its golden eyes blinked slowly, watching the world with quiet patience. It had given. It had taken. It had tested a man and found in him truth. Now, it waited for the next soul. The next choice. Because the forest never sleeps. And fate always circles back.